This is such a simple kind of drawing, simple concept, yet so deeply powerful, especially when it comes to understanding or trying to conceptualize and make sense of this relationship between the center of your self, indicated by the sun. And if you were to do a simple exercise where you just stretched out your arms like that and you just did a circle, you would notice that there would be a point from your center, the sun, to the most extended part of your arm, okay, the tip of your hand. If you went around in a circle, you'd see that there would be a space boundary that you would create. So we have a center point, everything has a center point, and then within a radius of that center point, there is a boundary that takes place, right? Or a horizon, depending on how you want to look at this. But either way, that we can all agree that every single one of us, including plant life, all have a center point, an origin, and then from that origin, the boundary of our space that we take up is different. And this is another cool way of actually seeing this attempt to see individuation as something that's part of this earthly plane, right? There's a center point. We all originate from the womb, and then from there we kind of branch out into individual emotional journeys that we would then call, from an EA perspective, the soul's experience, right? The separating desires. Okay, so what I like about this quote over here is body needs variable of time to be able to settle presence of soul in this three-dimensional space. And it really captured the essence of this talk, to be honest, right? Especially because this is about the ascendant, and it's the leading edge into the development of this circle. Okay, so body needs a variable of time to be able to settle presence of the soul in this three-dimensional space. So in other words, if we had to look at the symbol of Pluto, the glyph of Pluto, we could actually see here that the cross would represent the matter, right? So this is the three-dimensional space to which we take up, right? The semicircle over here can be represented through the ego structure that connects to this three-dimensional space. So this would be perceived by this circle. And then within it, we could say the nature of pure energy is manifest. And so it is through the connection of the pure manifest energy that initiates life, or the experience of this life, and the ego then interfaces with the physical dimension. So the body houses the experience of our consciousness, right? And so the soul in this state chooses a time of birth and a place of birth and a day of birth, of course. And what we have here is the coordinates for this three-dimensional space process. So the body becomes the physical matter. Three-dimensional space is our time of birth. And then, of course, we have the soul dynamic, which then, from an EA perspective, we would see as Pluto, because it represents the unconscious separating desire that initiates this life. Okay? So what has the ascendant got to do with this, and the cardinal signs, and the planets, or the signs that are on them? Well, if you had to see this image over here as completely like a blank slate, right? And of course, that's not the case, because we all carry with us individual memories from other lifetime experiences that are housed in the Uranian field. So if we had to just, for a moment, just step into a space in which the experience of this lifetime, from the point of view of the baby, has not actually been lived through. So we could say that the three-dimensional space experience is to unfold. This would be Capricorn, okay? And so here we have the unjourneyed emotional experience of the person, and the chart itself gives us a map towards, or an indication to what that emotional experience could be And if we look at it from an EA perspective, we would be asking the question, why this lifetime? And what are the types of emotional and psychological lessons that I'm going to be sort of looking at? Okay. And so this is where the chart comes in. We're looking at the three-dimensional space, the unfolding experience. And so the gateway that the ascendant represents to us is an invitation to look at what are the instinctual moment-to-moment experiences that you will live throughout your life that will, over a period of time, so over the period of the three-dimensional space-time experience, the unfoldment of your life, you would have a progressive molding and shaping of the sense of self. And the sense of self would then carry with it memories of experiences. So when you were 12 years old, for instance, and something was happening around your Jupiter return, or at the age of 7, and the first part of your sense of mortality started to come into your awareness, right? The Saturn return, the first Uranus square at 21, these are all emotional arcs that we go through that over a period of time contribute to the development of this unfolding journey that is you. And so the ascendant plays a big role in how you're going to be meeting that point of interaction and integration within life, right? So what is life going to be for you? Okay, so I hope that that's not too kind of like abstract or in any way, but you get the sense of what I'm really trying to put across here. So the body, in this sense, right, is the form. And the circle over here we can see is Capricorn, right? This is what actually allows us to define our individual space. Outside over here, we can see it as Neptune, right? We can see Neptune over here as the ocean of consciousness, or as another way that you can see it is that all of the other particles of life that is not separate from you, but in a sense, divided from your sense of individual self and the everybody else around you. And so the ascendant could and does speak to how this gets developed in this lifetime, right? What is it that is developing for you, so that when you get to the age of, and you'll notice this, right? This is kind of a really cool thing to reflect on. If you look at a baby and you look at, say, for instance, somebody that's lived to 80 to 90 years old, there is a very key match in reality. Both people's skin is very soft, very sensitive, and the only difference between the baby and the person who's lived up until the age of 90 is that the baby is unaware of its journey from an egocentric perspective, and the 90-year-old or the 80-year-old has experienced the journey. And so both are in a very, very conscious state of the unknown. In other words, I'm going a little bit off track here in terms of the experience of the soul, like coming to understand the soul. That's what I want to put across here, is that both ages in different ways reflect the connection back to source, right? And it's just that now, because you've had the emotional journey at the age of 90, you can reflect back on it. And it's that reflection from the sense of self that's been developed to the center. It's this space over here that allows you to say, oh, well, this was my experience, this was my life. And the ego development or ascendant and the other signs that are on the other points of the cardinal, they all speak to the development of this process. So you get to really see, again, I know I've said it a few times in different ways, that our life is about becoming conscious of this circle that is here. And so we become more awake and more aware of that process. And it's just consistently over time. That's what Yogananda and Sri Yukteswar talked about, right? The veil in the Maya would have small little holes, made in it, and light would come through and would be more conscious of this space that's here. And our journey is to experience the softening of this. And that's what the reference was, to the softness with the baby and the softness in your skin for a 90-year-old and 80-year-old, right? We've interfaced with life so much that we are very close to the source. The only difference is that at an 80-year-old, we're more aware of that journey. Okay.